I'm going to order the regular meeting of the Board of Directors for ReGen Monterey on June 23rd, 2023, 9 a.m. I believe there's no just cause or notifications. And we have Dr. Barber joining us remotely, and that's properly noticed. So thank you for being able to join us. And roll call, please.
Chair Campbell.
Here.
Vice Chair Shirley. Here. Director Alaska.
Here.
Director Delgado. Director Blackwelder.
Here.
Director Askew. Here. Director Peak.
Here.
Director Barber.
Here.
Thank you. Director Polito. Here. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Ida. We're going to have one change on the order of the agenda. We're going to move item 15, which is approved revised pay schedule for federal manager and unrepresented, to after the closed session. So just I want people to know that. And then please join me on the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We will open public communications for anyone wishing to address the board on matters not appearing on the agenda. You may do so now. Please limit comments to a maximum of 3 minutes. The public may comment on any other matter listed on the agenda at the time the matter is being considered by the board. For information about submitting public comments in writing in advance of the meeting, please see the meeting information section of this agenda. So we're opening general public comments. Please approach the podium if you are here in person, or raise your hand if you're online. Okay. Seeing no one, we'll close public comments. Moving on to the consent.
Chair, would you take a public comment from a director?
I could, but would you be willing?
Is that somewhere else?
Yeah, just
Oh, I got it. I'll do it.
board communications
Thank you.
towards the end of the meeting. Yes.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so moving on to the consent, these matters include routine financial and administrative actions, which are usually approved by a single majority vote. Individual items may be removed from consent for discussion and action. So we have 9 of them. So number 1, approve minutes of May 19, 2023, regular board meeting. Number 2, approve report of disbursements and board and employee reimbursements for May 2023. 3, receive June 7th, 2023 Finance Committee draft minutes. 4, receive June 7th, 2023 Personnel Committee draft minutes. 5, adopt the resolution 2023-06 establishing investment policy guideline for district for fiscal year 2023-24. 6, authorize the general manager to execute the engagement letter with Hyde Bailey CPAs and business advisory for fiscal 2023 audit. These estimated to be $53,290. 7, declare surplus and authorize the disposition of multiple district assets by selling them for scrap and or by the sealed bid solicitation process or third-party auction. 8, authorize the continued recording and posting of board and committee meetings online. 9, approve limited term recyclable processing agreement with Waste Connections, Cold Canyon Landfill Incorporated of San Luis Obispo, California, for the Cold Canyon processing facility. Is there anyone on the board who wishes to pull an item for further discussion? Bill? Number 9. Okay, thank you. Anyone else? All right. Is there any member of the public that would like to either pull an item off the consent agenda or make comments generally on the consent agenda, and we will be dealing with number 9 separately. Please approach the podium or raise your hand.
10.
Okay, seeing no one, closing public comment on the consent. Let's we can have a motion, please. Okay, thank you, Jerry, for the first to move approval of the consent items 1 through 8, and Leo seconds it. Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Askew? Aye. Dr. Barber?
Yes.
Dr. Blackwelder?
Yes.
Dr. Delgado?
Yes.
Dr. Perlito?
Yes.
Dr. Laska?
Yes.
Dr. Peak?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley? Yes. Chair Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Unanimous.
Unanimous. All right, item 9, Bill, I don't know, do you, would you like to make a presentation or?
I'd like to just make the introduction on the item. So this item is a tentative short-term agreement with Cold Canyon, a Waste Connections company, to process materials for a 3-week period. This allows an opportunity for the district to process material from Cold Canyon while they do repairs to their facility. Would be for a 3-week period, roughly estimated, for the service that would be rendered. Gold Canyon has tentatively agreed to render all the sales of the commodity to ReGen Monterey. And they would like for us to pay a $10 rebate on the material so that they can cover their costs for loading materials at their facility with their staff and their personnel. And then they would like us to take on the transportation cost entirely, since they're rendering the full amount of the revenue from the revenue stream that would be available from the commodity sales. At this time, it would be an opportunity for us to process material on a roughly within a 1-month period. It would render roughly about $100,000 in revenue sales for the district. And I think it's an opportunity for us to render additional revenue to spread over costs that are shared with member agencies and other people that use the facility. Thank you, Chair.
All right, thank you. Any questions from the board?
Comments, no questions.
Okay, Bill?
All right. And first of all, apologies to staff for bringing this up, my issues up at the very last minute. Not good board behavior. So, I have 2 concerns, and well, one is that my understanding is, as was just said, that this is supposed to be a very limited short-term agreement, and doing so, I'd like to see that written into the agreement. The agreement is for 1 year, and there's no limit written into the agreement. It says it runs the entire fiscal year, July 1 this year to June 30 next year, and it just says the entire quantity of loose single stream recyclable. So there's no limits on here. So it would be better, I believe, if this had some limit, tonnage, or a time window written into this agreement, as that's our understanding. And the other concern that I have is maybe more difficult, is that this board has an unwritten policy of charging $40 a ton for single stream recyclables. And what we're doing with this agreement is we're paying $10 a ton for recyclables. So we're giving Cold Canyon, private company, a $50 a ton discount on our fees. So I understand the reason for this is cash flow. I'm having I would have a very hard time justifying to my community that these folks from San Luis Obispo get a $50 a fee discount for cash flow. And that's it in a nutshell. If you could give me another reason, a justification for this, I would appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Sure. Item number one on the time period that we did, we've had this item come to the finance committee before the board meeting. And in both instances, the duration and the work period has laterally on the work going to be performed. So they had a deferred item that was not available for the repair in the last month. So it's gotten pushed to the later term of August. The whole idea around expanding the bucket of time was just to create predictability for the work to be performed. We're only aware of the work that's going to be performed for a 2 to 3 week period. We just didn't want to have to come back every time they get a deferral of work to be performed. So we could identify a period of time or a tonnage maximum that we would want to receive during that time. As for another reason for the difference, I think one of the differences is going to be the two different modeling. One is a very short duration of about a 3 week period. The other modeling on $40 a ton has been for the existing member agencies and everyone else that has a longer term usage of the facility, meaning that a full burden of costs for the usage of the facility in operation 365 days out of the year, with the exception of holidays and weekends. And the Cold Canyon is a 3 week duration, not utilizing the full resources of the machinery there. It is an offset to cost that ReGen desires to get from the $100,000 increase in revenue that we'd receive for processing material mixed with other material. And we wouldn't carry very much more burden on operation costs. So we have a short window to either provide the service in that short duration or not, and pass up the opportunity on some additional cash. Thank you. Bruce?
Is there any impact on our landfill? And is it true that the more we get, the more materials, more tons we take, the more profit we make?
That is correct.
And then the landfill?
No impact to the landfill. The profitability has been based off a 3-month composition study that we received from Old Canyon, so that we could do a comparison of what we were getting for rebate and value of our commodity, and including what we could expect from their commodity composition.
Okay, so any contamination would go to the landfill,
Any of the residuals, yes.
but it's expected to be de minimis?
Probably in line to what we do now. How much are we doing right now, Dave?
20, I think the composition was 21%.
So if we take 100 tons, that would put 21 tons in the landfill. All right,
I think we're projected to take how many tons over the period of time?
1,500, 100 tons a day for 15 days.
okay. So is it true that we charge them per ton, we take off our costs, staff, et cetera, and there's money left over that we would call profit?
Correct.
So the more tons we take, the more profit we make. And the only downside then would be whether our staff can handle the extra workload and the impact to the landfill, which is a 20% impact.
No impact to the existing staff and workload that we have. We do have 6 operating days, and usually our 5th operating day or 6th operating day, we're keeping materials on the floor, run a lighter crew so we can process the following Monday. So no impact. We still have bandwidth for more material.
So aside from the 20 tons per day going into our landfill from contamination, is there any downside to this?
I think no downside other than the perspective of, is it apples to apples on a long-term agreement versus a short-term agreement? And I think the upside is the relationship we gain from Cold Canyon. If we ever render ourselves in a position that we need to have another facility to process our material, that could be developed through this process here as well. That would be an expectation.
And then a benefit would be if we do this and we like, when it's all over that we did it, Cold Canyon might come to us in the future if they need us, and we saw this as a beneficial arrangement, we would be maybe first in line again.
Correct, correct. As they looked at us as the first opportunity because of the amount that we could process in a day. We would not be sure that we could secure another agreement by putting the full burden on just the transportation and the transloading on Old Canyon from our discussions up to this point.
All right, thank you, Chair.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, for bringing up what appears to look, and feel like a disparity in terms of how we treat our local clients and how we would treat someone out of the area. And I think it's important that we have, like, we're aware of that and thoughtful of that. And I am also hearing very clearly that there are some nuances in how business works, right? Which is, we have to, not everything is, sometimes we have to, like, there's ways in which our operations have to be flexible to meet the changing needs. So if Cold Canyon were to go out somewhere else, would they have to pay $40 a ton to have this single stream recycled?
It's unknown at this time if they were to take another option, what that option would be.
What that option would be?
Yeah.
Okay, but there are other options available to
Yes.
them?
Yes.
Okay, and I think the key thing that I'm saying is that there's a long-term versus a short-term kind of situation that's at play. I think to the mayor's point, putting a tonnage maximum, maybe doubling what we anticipate, just so that there's flexibility, and I get it, that the timelines, shift and that we need that flexibility. And then maybe I think there is also room to have maybe a study session or education for us and our communities about how these rates are set and how the market is a dynamic market, and what impact that may have on how we set rates and how we make different decisions over the course of time to respond and react and plan for our operations and functioning. Because it's not always just, here's the price. When we're operating a facility like this, like, there are all of these different factors that are playing out. And there is benefit to having the long-term reliability versus having, like, okay, we can accommodate you for 1 minute right now, versus we're accountable to making sure that we're accommodating you over time and into the future. So, but I do think there's a need and a desire, and I would support having some of a broader conversation about how we approach this and why we would approach things differently.
Anyone else? I'm starting to, it seems like a difficult thing to explain right now, and I'm not quite clear on why, on why they're being less of a burden on our system, especially when we're actually doing the transportation ourselves. Just refresh my memory, do we back charge? I thought we did back charge the haulers for the spoils in the recycling, the 15-20%.
We do not charge residual.
We do not.
No, we eliminated residual fee in 2022 and increased the processing to cover residual costs.
Okay, so
All in one. So we're not having to try to weigh out whatever residual is for multiple agencies that are using the same facility.
Okay, so it's kind of built into the $40
Yes.
per ton processing fee. And which again is with the delta of $50 with these, which is also, as noted, was a private company, and if it was another government agency and I can see the goodwill extended. My feeling and experience is most private corporations don't extend necessarily towards government. They maximize their whatever they can get. And if the roles were reversed, do we have any idea what they charge for processing?
I do not know what their processing fee would be.
No.
All right, I'll open this up to public. Is there anybody from the public who wishes to speak on this? Please raise your hand, okay. Closing public comment, any last comments from the board?
Yeah, I got one last comment.
Yeah.
I think we're not, to me, it seems like philosophically, we're not just totally inclusive. We only do everything for us. We recognize that we're part of the larger community that's around us. Also, the other facilities are around us. We have import that we bring in from San Jose, but that's a regular contract, and so they're charged the normal fees. This is a 3-week situation. They're upgrading the facilities. And I see no reason that we just can't go ahead with it. It's not like we're talking about anything long term. It's just helping somebody else out. And I think it's that's the way we ought to be. Anything like that, we can do it. So I say we approve it as written.
I'll second that.
I have a comment. Just to agree with Jerry, we can be, welcoming with partners and make money at the same time. To me, it's kind of a no-brainer.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on this.
Did you have comment?
I just have one question. Under the discussion, it says that this is to process 100 tons. So is that a limit in that, or is that just a discussion point?
It's the 100 tons a day for 15 days that we're expecting, so we could put probably a cap to it. So if it's 15,000 tons, then we could put a cap at 16 or 17, just over or under.
Would you, Jerry, would you be open to amending that?
A friendly amendment.
I don't see why. I would just leave it as is, but if somebody.
Let's make a substitute. Bill?
I just wanted to endorse the recommendation from Director Askew about a board discussion as to how we're charging customers different fees for the same service.
Okay. Certainly, Felipe is taking good note of that, and
Yeah, I like the idea of having that discussion. I think we've had it before. The prices are different depending on what we get and what they get. But it's good to have a discussion as often as possible. I don't know why we limit the tonnage if it's a good thing. And it was 115 tons in one day. Why wouldn't we take that? It's just better for us and it's better for them. It's a win-win. Unless we're worried about something like impact to our landfill that we want to minimize, or I just don't know what we're worried about in this case, and except for the residual. So if they bring in 200 tons per day, I would be happier than if they brought in 100 tons per day, because instead of making $100,000, we'd make more than that. So that's what we're doing here.
I agree.
Actually, I think the difference and part of the reason why we have a cost differential is because it being a short term versus a long term. And as a steward of our landfill and a steward of our jurisdiction, by putting the tonnage limit on, it's part of why they're getting the rate that's being set. And so I think that those are if the argument, and what I hear the argument being, or the reason being, that we're able to have a different rate set because we're talking about a commodity, and the period of time for which we're going for the limited scope of how much is going to be accepted is part of why that rate is set. If we accept this contract as written without that limit, they could be like, oh, dude, we're going to just divert everything over here because but then that's out of what our intent is. I think it's important that our intent of the contract matches the language of the contract. So I would support having some, maybe double what we anticipate, but to allow for as much flexibility as we need to, but also to recognize that if they want to come back and negotiate a longer term contract that allows them to, consider the best deal for their product effectively, then we need to adjust our rate accordingly to that reality. So did I hear a second?
There was a first and a second on the original contract, but somebody wants to make a substitute.
Okay, so I would have asked for a friendly amendment to the motion, just that we, and what was the maximum tonnage that we expect to receive
100. That's what daily.
per day? What's the total tonnage we expect to receive?
1,500.
So let's say 5,000 tons. That gives us plenty of options, plenty of room.
For the whole duration.
No more than 2.
Okay, so, yeah, I want to make sure we've got some flexibility. So 2,500 I would put out as a compromise to say, you know, yes, let's take advantage of when we can get revenue. Let's also acknowledge that the reason that the price is set as it is because it's a short-term, smaller amount of contract. I'll make that, I guess, a substitute motion to that effect, that we accept the contract as is, that we include the tonnage maximum for recognizing that the tonnage maximum is part of how the rate is being set. If they want to come back and negotiate a different longer term contract with us, we would likely have a different rate. Something as a substitute motion.
No, so.
I'll second.
Okay.
I'll second.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I think we wouldn't necessarily approve this contract if it was for a longer duration, even if we were making this money on it, because again, that perception that our jurisdictions are taking a hit because this other outside company is getting a deal. I think I'm willing to be kind for 3 weeks, or because I feel that we have the ability to do it. We are making money from it, so so it's an opportunity for us. But again, I don't think we would approve this if it was for much longer. So I also agree putting a cap on it, and then we continue having these discussions about these opportunities that may come to us in the future.
Me too. I have trouble with the idea that it looks like our member agencies are actually subsidizing private corporation, and if commodity prices change during the next year and fuel prices go up because we're paying for the transportation, they might see this as a deal, and they'll just maximize everything they can.
I
And
think they're
meanwhile,
just doing repairs. I don't think that this is a business move where they can try to sneak a couple tons here and a couple tons there. They're making some repairs for 3 weeks.
yeah. Yeah. Anyway, yeah, so I'm not sure what their intentions are, but we can make our intentions more clear. That works for you. So we have a substitute motion and a second. Is there any more comments on the?
I have a question for Felipe. Do you think putting a cap on it is gonna affect their interest in?
No. The estimated value is the total commodity that they're receiving at their facility already. So what we are expecting is a full closure of their facility for the 3-week periods. There is no additional volume that they're gonna be looking for, because what they rendered to us is all the volume already. So
Right, they're gonna want that back.
yeah, well, they take a loss right off the bat, because they're rendering all the revenue that they would make from that stream from day one.
Right.
So they're gonna want to get back online as fast as they can, and they're gonna want to get their material back so that they can get their sale of revenue back for that aspect of their business.
All right. Any more comment from the board, Dr. Barber? All right.
No.
Okay, thank you. So we have a motion and a second on as the substitute motion, a second, which is to approve the contract, but with a cap of what was the
So they're
number?
for 2,500.
2,500, not to exceed.
Not to exceed 2,500 tons. All right, roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
Aye.
Director Barber,
Yes.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Ferlito,
Yes.
Director Laska,
Yeah.
Director Peak,
All right.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes.
motion passes unanimously.
All right, thank you, Ida, and
That's quick, we didn't address in the timeline on having a discussion about it. Do you want to address that?
well, Felipe, will you,
Sure. We did cover this pretty extensively at the 2 finance committees, so we could bring this back to the finance committee and address how we would want to present the price setting for a short-term agreement versus a long-term agreement for discussion. Do you have another pathway that you would recommend at this time?
I thought that I was envisioning a larger discussion about rates and what we're doing now and. I thought we had a white paper coming out sort of on this issue about using our landfill for outside sources, so kind of is tied into that.
Should we include it in that discussion with the white paper? And when we have the review of the white paper, do we cover the recycling aspect of it as well versus the short-term agreement or not?
Yeah, I don't know if the short-term agreement is that important because it comes up so infrequently, but it's it's worth touching on it in the discussion. But I think the overall discussion and purpose of the white paper was to have something that we could defend with the public and ourselves, the balance between landfill life and importing garbage and rates. Do that.
I would agree. I think every time something new comes up, which is opportunity, but also challenge, it is an opportunity to have policy for it. And, you don't always anticipate things, but when they do come up, then you can anticipate it in the future, so you can cover it ahead of time with a basic policy.
So am I hearing that the board desires a workshop around rates setting?
I think that's probably the best way, so we can have just a comprehensive idea of.
And maybe some education about sort of commodity pricing. I've been commodity sales before I became a public servant, and like I looked at the contract. I know what I would do with this contract if I had gotten my hands on it. Not to. So I think understanding that for us to understand what waste commodity, like what that market is and how that impacts how we may set policy. We could set policy just to say, black and white, this is fair, this is not fair, but we're not in that kind of business. We're in a very different kind of business where commodity pricing and commodity rates and it's fluctuating. So our policy has to be able to respond to that. But if we don't understand how that market works, we're not going to be able to set appropriate policy. So I would be looking for some education for us and our member agencies around how that sort of larger space function exists. That's what I would request.
Yeah, I agree. So would I hope that board would be okay with when the white paper is presented, hopefully on a relatively light agenda, we can also expand, have a more broad discussion as far as how we come about, where the rates, how we justify the rates, which we are actually going to be voting on later today. So if there's more questions,
We'll reach out to the board. We'll start looking for some potential dates that we can align ourselves with the workshop, and then also a follow-up discussion on the white paper. The white paper draft will be completed and it'll be dispersed pretty soon for feedback from all the board members as well. Thank you.
Okay, great. All right, thank you, everybody, for the good discussion and interest in getting this and knowing. So we are finished with the consent with item 9. We're moving on to item 10, which is a public hearing to consider fiscal year 2023-24 tipping fee increases for the noticed gate rate items effective July 1, 2023, and the single stream recycling rates will remain at $40 per ton for all member agencies. Felipe?
So you'd like to go to public hearing, and then you would also.
Yeah, okay. We're opening the public hearing right now. And Felipe, if you'd introduce or.
Sure. So as we have brought to this board and to the finance committee and personnel committee, it's been a recommendation for the board to receive the tipping fee increases that were proposed. And also keep member agencies processing fees at $40 per ton. That was designed in the budget, and that is the item that pertains today. So we have public hearing. We'll close public hearing and then we will take a vote on the item.
Okay, great. Any questions from the board?
Yes, I have a question. So since we're talking about the wider conversation dealing with rates that we're going to have in the workshop, my question is, since this is still in that neighborhood, would this be a part of that same conversation, or is this something separate?
this is probably separate, because it is the item that we're gonna take action on for this current fiscal year. It could be an item that we touch on during the workshop, but not particularly right at this moment.
Right, so I guess that's what my question is. I understand what we're voting on now, but that this, I believe if we're gonna do rates, we need to have this, everything to be a part of the conversation if we're talking about rates, so that
Correct.
we can
Correct.
educate the board and also be able to see the comparably what it looks like.
Would agree.
Okay, yeah, no, that's absolutely, these tipping fee increases, for some of the items, they are, I mean, they're kind of built into our budget. We're assuming that's gonna happen. It's been gone over by staff as well and the finance committee and all that, but I think we still would all like to have a broader understanding of how these numbers come about. Any other board member questions? I will open it to, I'm sorry.
I was just gonna say, I think it's a good question, but I also recognize that while we engage in policy discussions and study sessions, we still have to operate our operation. And so in order for us to adopt our budget and to like administer our budget for this year, I think we have to approve this item today so that we can continue with operation while we in parallel engage in some additional learning and conversations around future rate setting for tip fees. So I would support some adoption of this today. I think the question is relevant, so I'm just acknowledging all of that.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so the public hearing is open, and is there any member of the public who would like to speak on these items, A and B? If you're in the chambers, please approach the podium, and online, please raise your hand, make yourself.
I show none. No members.
Okay, seeing no one, I'm closing a public comment on public hearing, and I am closing the public hearing. I would like further comments or a motion.
I'll move.
Thank you. You have a-
Second,
Number 11 in that too.
No, we did not. That's it.
We closed public hearing
We
item
closed
number 10, and then you'll go on to item number 11. You'll
Thank
take the
you.
motion on 11.
Okay, sorry, this is a motion on 11.
Yes.
Yes,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Leo, for clarifying that. All right, public hearing has been closed. We're moving on to item 11, which is also effective July 1, 2023, approved fiscal year 2023-24 tipping fee increases, for the gate rate items that were noticed, and be approved that single stream recycling rates will remain at $40 per ton for all member agencies. And I believe Wendy made a motion and Bill
Second.
made this, Bill already made the second. And is there any public comment on this action item? Please approach the podium if you're in the chambers, or make yourself known online.
Show none.
All right, seeing no one, we'll close public comment on this item. Any final comments from the board? Bill.
I want to thank staff for providing an extra pie chart. Love pie charts. And where the revenue is coming from. I know the report has great financial metrics on the type of services, for which services money comes from, but I think it behooves the district board to know where which customers are providing what amount of revenue. And so I appreciate that. It is an eye opener that only 25% of the revenue for the district comes from the member agencies. That's valuable information as we look further.
Yes.
Thank you, Director. Some of the enhancements that we have done have been based on your comments and questions. So we're glad that you acknowledge those. I'd like to thank the finance team and then all the leadership team that participated in the budget process that included the board to get the results that we were looking for this year. So while tune machine where we get everybody's feedback and input to do their best job to predict what's coming in the future and align all our 3 strategic priorities to achieve the budget process this year. So thank you, Director.
All right, great. See no one else wishing to make comment, roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
I,
Director Barber,
Yes.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Ferlito,
Yes.
Director Alaska,
Yes.
Director Peak,
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Yes,
motion passes unanimously.
thank you, Ida. All right, I believe since I said we're gonna move 15 to the end after closed session, but if it would be all right for us to adopt 12, 13, and 14 all at once, that would be great. Thank you. That was we will take number 12, which is adopt resolution 2023-07, approving final budget for fiscal year 23-24. 13, approve revised pay schedule for the operating engineers local 3 to incorporate cost of living adjustments for fiscal year 23-24. And subset A, the support unit, B, the operations unit, and C, the allies unit. And then 14, approve revised pay schedule for the management unit to incorporate cost of living adjustments for fiscal year 23-24. So we will deal with all these at once unless anyone has any objections. And are there any questions from the board? All right, seeing none. Is there, so let's open up to public comments or questions for our for our budgets, our future budget, and our and the employee. Okay, so it's no one in the chamber and seeing no one online, we'll close public comment on these items. Yeah, so we as far as the budget goes, we've taken a look at the drafts a few times and gone through them a few times, and Garth, thank you very much for putting together such a concise and it's a lot of information, but fairly readable as far as budgets go. So thank you very much for that.
a comment.
Yes, please.
I move approval of items 12, 13, and 14.
Mhm.
And I should say that I'm really proud of ReGen for including the living wage adjustment in part of our OE3 contract. I'm proud of us for budgeting that. I'm proud of us for the commitment that we have to ensure that all of our employees, especially our lowest paid workers, are earning what they need to be able to take care of their families and live here. I know that we've got a ways to go to get there, but I also want to recognize and thank the union for supporting us in finding the ways to close some of those gaps and bring some equity to how we compensate employees. So I'm recognizing that not everyone at ReGen got the same increase from OE3, but being able to increase at a faster rate the lowest paid workers, I think is really a statement of values that we have on our wall. And it makes me really proud to about this budget today. So just want to comment on that.
All right, thank you. Anyone else? Great. So Lenny, thank you for making the motion to approve items 12, 13, and 14. Bill?
Second, that the motion was made.
Thank you. Thank you. Any final comments? All right, roll call vote, please.
Director Askew,
I
Director Barber,
Yes.
Director Blackwelder,
Yes.
Director Delgado,
Yes.
Director Ferlito,
Yes.
Director Alaska,
Yes.
Director Peak,
Yes.
Vice Chair Shirley,
Yes.
Chair Campbell,
Hi,
motion passes unanimously.
thank you. Thank you, everybody. And thank you, staff, for all the hard work setting us up for the next year. Great. Moving on to 16, review finance, operating, and recycling reports.
Yes, thank you, Chair. At this time, we're gonna have Garth Raxon do our staff report over our finance, operating, and recycling reports. Thank you.
Morning, everybody. We are 11 months into the year, 1 month left to go. And May was a somewhat interesting month. The tip fee revenue was quite a bit above budget. In fact, I think it was the highest month of the fiscal year in terms of our tip fee revenue. Other revenue items, the power revenue was down, but it was primarily because we had a lot of the machinery down for repairs and routine maintenance. So that impacted that. Our expenses were a little higher, and primarily in the outside services where we spent several $100,000 on material to improve the roads out around the landfill. So that was sort of a non-recurring cost that comes up every couple of years or so, but we had to do that. And the other big item in May was we received $1.8 million from the California Energy Resources Commission for work that had been done on the LFG system in previous years. We had applied for this grant, I believe, back in 2018, and the project is completed, and so we received the funds for that in May. So year to date, our total revenue is about 45 million. We are well over the budget in revenue, about 840K. Our operating expenses are also over budget by about 2.3 million. With a variety of factors in there, our recycling costs, specifically our keep day costs, our fuel costs are higher. Some of these outside services costs, like one I just mentioned, those are higher. So that's impacting our operating expenses. But bottom line is we are about 10.5 million net income for the year, and we are about 1.3 million ahead of budget for the year. So that's a very good sign there. And in terms of our material activity, it continues to be very much in line with what we've had in prior months. Year to date, we're about 914,000 tons received, compared to 90,000 rather last year. So we're about 125,000 tons more material received this year than last year. And the factors involved there is, we have the contract with Waste Connections that we didn't have last year. And just overall volume was up, partially impacted by the closure of the facility in Salinas earlier this year. So we have more local commercial traffic coming here than we did before. So that's impacting the tonnage received. In terms of our MRF processing, our diversion rate for the MRF this year is just under 61% compared to 62% last year. So it's not really fluctuating very much. The C&D number continues to be in the mid 50% range, and then the single stream is in the mid 60% range. So overall, it's staying pretty consistent with prior months and prior years for that matter. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them this time.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I had a quick question.
Yes, please.
So for me, this is just for my own education as I'm learning more and more about this since I'm new on the board. And I know you had said that there was a $1.8 million grant that was received in May, but is May seasonally a high month? Is that what the seasonality of it is?
Well, May in and of itself is not necessarily a higher month. However, the summer months, as we get into the summer months, they do tend to be a little higher in terms of the tip fee revenue activity. So that's a fairly normal thing to see.
So what's your highest month for the tip fee?
The highest month for the tip fee, well, so far in fiscal 23, it is the month of May, which is 4.3
Okay,
million.
but that's not typical, you're saying?
Well, I'm saying it's kind of typical for this time of year. What happens is, like, during the summer months, there is a slight uptick in the tip fee revenue. And then in the winter months, it ticks down a little bit.
Okay.
So it doesn't fluctuate a great deal from month to month, but there are slight variations during the seasons.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, you're welcome. Yes.
So along that line, the storms that we had this year, that probably brought in a lot more debris. Is that true?
Yeah, it brought in more debris. I wouldn't say it was a significantly high number that came in. Yes, there was more material.
You know, in Carmel, there were over 100 trees went down. I just think that stuff went somewhere. And then all the debris from the river flooding and so on. It seems like that would be a seasonal fluctuation too, particularly with these storms.
Yeah, well, we did look at the number. We do have that material isolated in our scales record so that we can identify all the material that came here, as a result of storm damage. And it is a good sized number, but it's not enough really to, move the needle much in terms of the overall district results.
Thank you.
All right. Seeing no one else, thank you, Garth. Thank you very much. That's very informative. Okay, moving on to item 17, report on technical advisory committee and SB 1383 for the May 10th meeting.
Thank you, Chair. Today we have Zoe Schultz, our Director of Communications, presenting on the tech committee meeting that we had.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. I'll be giving an update on our May 10th meeting of the Technical Advisory Committee. At that meeting, we had a presentation of the contamination monitoring results from Blue Stripe. This is the same information that came to your board at the last meeting, so I won't go over any of the details of that. Other item was we discussed the passage of the shared cost, SB 1383 shared cost MOU amendment approval. Those have gone through the majority of the councils thus far. There's a couple more still to be scheduled, and one that's sitting with county council, but we're tracking with all of the agencies to make sure that those MOUs get approved in a timely manner, and don't have any issues to report on that at the moment. Well, we also gave a presentation of ReGen's outreach events at local events this year throughout the cities. We try to at least go to one event per jurisdiction per year. This year, we've gone to Whale Fest in Monterey. We went to Earth Day in both Marina and Seaside. April is always a very busy month for us. We were at the Pacific Grove Good Old Days, and we have more events coming up throughout the remainder of this calendar year. Oh, we went to Earth Day in Carmel as well, excuse me. That's why April was so busy. That was our first inaugural Earth Day event, very well attended. We also had a presentation, a short introduction about our artists in residence, of which you also have received a presentation at this board. So that's what I have to report on our May Technical Advisory Committee. Happy to take any questions if there are any.
Any questions from the board? I believe you have a comment more than a question. Go ahead, Jim.
Yeah, I do want to comment. I ended up by going to the TAC meeting for this month, as you know, and I want to share with the board how impressed I was with that meeting in its breadth in terms of attendance. I mean, every stakeholder was there. I just thought that was incredible. Everyone was participating. The meeting was really efficient in how you covered topics. I can see why we're so far in advance on 1383. You have done fabulous work to ReGen, to Mike. I found it so impressive. I wish we could have something like this for water. So, I mean, I just feel like you've taken something that's really difficult and you've collaborated and we're seeing the results. And as a jurisdiction, I'm grateful for the work you're doing. I know, and in going to that meeting, I'm realizing the jurisdictions, we still have some responsibilities we need to follow through on. And so I was really happy to be there to be able to share that with my city afterwards. But I just want to thank you for all your work. It's impressive.
Thank you. Well, and thank you for attending. So you could see firsthand. And when I stand up here on a monthly basis and give these reports, it's my pleasure to do so. But I'm glad that you got to see firsthand that I get to stand up here and give these reports, but there are 30+ people at these monthly meetings that help to guide the policy for this board to decide on and for each of the councils to decide on as it relates to SB 1383 compliance and other items. So it's really, truly a collaborative effort, and it's led by both Mike and Ted, and thank you both for your leadership. And there's others that stand up at the subcommittees and provide leadership as well. Kristen is one of them. So thanks to everyone for this collaborative effort. I think that's why we're making such progress.
I have a interesting story. I was going to a store and I noticed that one of the workers there was just throwing trash into the dumpster, and along with the trash, there was a huge bag of carrots. So I went into the store, and so I went to the produce area and I asked, is there a manager around I could talk to? And she goes, why, what's the problem? I said, well, I saw somebody throwing a big bag of carrots into the regular trash, and so immediately another produce person came up and said, what's that? I said, yeah. And so he says, it's a new guy. So he rushed out the door to take care of it. And I asked her, well, are you familiar with 1383? And she goes, yes. And we're trying to, do the best that we can. So anyway, so I called Zoe to let her know. And one of the nice things is that she answered the phone. Often get people answering the phone, which is a frustration with me when everybody's got the same frustration, I'm sure. Anyway, so we talked about it. Immediately she wanted to go down and execute all the people there. I said, no, I don't. I think the response was actually positive. They understand the gravity of it. And they responded immediately. And then she got back again saying that they had some violations, and she might be just saying, we're noticing you out there. So anyway, it was nice for me to know that, there is things going on outside with stores. They are paying attention. They know what 1383 is. And so Zoe reminds them what 1383 means. So they're keeping up with it. And I imagine the same thing would happen if you would go to restaurants to find out what they're doing with their stuff, and conventions, what they're doing with their food, extra food, if it's going to was it Sally's Kitchen or Dorothy's Kitchen. So it appears that 1383 is a huge undertaking, and I think Zoe is the right person for the job, because she's definitely out there. And you're right, it's not just this one time a month that we think that something's going on. There's a lot of stuff going on, and this is probably one of the most efficient organizations I've ever run into. So anyway, thank you.
Thank you. I can't take credit for the efforts that have gone on at the store level, because when I had reached out to both the hauler and the city, they were the ones that were aware of the compliance issues with that particular store. And so they relayed that information back to me. A lot of the technical assistance that happens at a store level or a restaurant level or a venue happens with the hauler. And if there's issues that happen at that level, then it can escalate to city staff. So I can't take credit for that, but I'm glad to have been able to connect the dots and know who to call.
But they're reminded. They were reminded
Yes.
by one that I was just going in there shopping, just, so now they know that there's eyes everywhere. And they
And
don't know
thank you for
who's
that.
who. And they also know there's, Zoe. So I think it makes a difference.
Bruce, did you have?
So do you think that most commercial entities, whether they be bars or professional offices, bag or collect and dispose of their recyclables in bags? Do you think that most commercial entities do that?
I don't have any data to support inclinations one way or the other. I would guess that most of them do bag, at least at the point at the source in their office. Whether or not those bags get dumped into the dumpster and it wind up with us or not, I couldn't comment on.
The reason I ask is because where I work and where I shop, when I look in all the trash cans, they all have liners.
Mhm.
And when I see employees going to the dumpster, they look like Santa Claus, and they throw the bags in the recycling and throw the bags in the garbage. So to me, it looks like that's the common practice. And on this end, it seems like there would be a high degree of contamination if everyone is doing what I see a small sample of everyone doing.
Mhm.
And so I know that 1383 has a long way to go. But is that like a big issue that the TAC is aware of, or it's not an issue that the TAC addresses?
It certainly would be the type of issue that TAC could address. I mean, we could address any sort of issue that has to do with collaboration between the processor, the hauler, and the jurisdiction at a staff level. As to if the bags are an issue or not, I would say two things. One, and Jay, feel free to chime in as our director of operations. We do have a bag breaker in our MRF. So that's good. So if the bags are tied and sealed, what happens is they come through the beginning portions of our MRF. Someone, a sorter will pick that bag out, put it on a conveyor belt, and that will go to break the bag open, and it will run through the line again. The issue with that is when that bag comes back through, it's film plastic, and we already have a lot of film plastic that we see in our MRF, and that gets tangled up in all of the screens and causes downtime as our MRF maintenance staff has to come and literally cut out, unplug the machines and climb in the screens and cut out those plastic bags. So it's a huge maintenance issue for us on a daily basis. To have that many bags just coming through the system. So that would be something that we could use probably as a community more education on, I would say, is to not bag your recyclables.
All right, so where we're, MCWD is the landlord, so they're not connected to this issue as a landlord. The federal government where I work is disposing of the stuff in the bins, and they're not aware. And then the private contractor who does the custodial is absolutely unaware. And they're the ones that put all the bags in a big bag and throw that big bag of all the little bags that's improperly sorted material to begin with into the recycling bin. When I look next door at the dumpsters of the dialysis, it's a complete mess. So it just seemed like the elephant in the room, or the emperor that has no clothes, is that there's a huge problem of people knowing or caring how to process their commercial waste, with bars throwing all their glass into the garbage and throwing it into the waste, doing something different with their aluminum cans, probably because they make money. It just seems like in some ways things are out of control, like they always have been, and 1383 has a long way to go. But I know that a lot of work and success is happening at the same time.
Yeah, what we can do is consider having the hauler reach out to some of those organizations and see if they can provide some technical assistance as it relates to proper waste sorting at those businesses. Technical assistance usually happens between the haulers directly and the businesses, whether they're in compliance or out of compliance with various laws. So if you want me to reach out to the haulers on behalf of these organizations to see if some technical assistance can be provided, I'm happy to connect those dots.
Well, it just seems like a finger in the dike, and so my question is, like, overall, is the dike, imploding, and the fingers aren't the right approach, but something more comprehensive would be the better approach.
There are a lot of issues, I guess, with recycling today, and the industry as a whole. With the fact that we have roughly 25% contamination coming out of our MRF, and it takes a lot of staff time to sort all of that is a problem. And so I think getting back to basics on what is and isn't recyclable as a community is something that needs to be addressed as an industry, and is not a problem unique to here. There's a lot of wish cycling that happens with products, and people not wanting to feel the guilt of throwing something that they think should be recyclable in the trash. So that's something that we could certainly use more education on as a community, but also as just the nation. And recycling is ever changing, so there's challenges with that as well.
Okay, and my last question is, I'm sorry it takes much time, this will be very brief, is that, does the TAC ever address the discrepancies in fees that renters pay in multifamily housing for organics and recycling and garbage as compared to single family homeowners, or single family home dwellers?
It hasn't in the time that I've been on the TAC, but I can't speak to before then.
I bring it up because it's coming up at the Marina City Council level, where renters are saying, hey, there's some real inequalities, and we pay more as renters for the same services than single family homeowners, and that's not fair. So our staff is trying to work through that. So it's probably going to come to you for some expertise.
Okay, and it's potential that one of our TAC chairs could comment on that, because they've been privy to some of those longer term conversations as a TAC. But we could look into that as well.
Thank you for this action.
Yeah, no problem. Karen?
Yeah, I have a concern, particularly for Carmel. We don't have alleyways, so we have very limited places for the black can, the yellow can for the food, and the green. It's not a green can, the blue can. So we have, I think, at least 18 food service places that have asked for waivers from this, and that concerns me. That waivers are also a way of getting around just not wanting to change your practices to do it the right way. If you can ask for a waiver and say, we don't have room for that, you know, that keeps you from actually developing a better, perhaps ordering process, ordering differently your foodstuffs. And so I just wanted to mention that I hope that you could talk about that at the TAC sometime, about the requirements for waivers and possibly phasing out those waivers in the future with better education of how to handle space and waste. I know there's nothing like walking in Carmel early in the morning before the trash companies come around and pick up everything and seeing the contamination in some of the blue bins particularly. I mean, everything thrown in there. And I know sometimes it's a matter of being hurried or taking the easy way out, but I think we have to educate away from waivers to get everybody eventually participating in order for this to be successful. And more education, and once in a while a little crackdown on certain industries that aren't doing their part to help. I certainly understand waivers for banks and offices that aren't producing other than maybe somebody's lunch, but I see way too many waivers in Carmel in restaurants, and it's concerning to me.
Thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, there are two waivers as it relates to SB 1383 and not needing a green cart for organics. One is a de minimis waiver, as you mentioned, like not producing enough organic materials to qualify for the need for a cart. And the other one is a space constraint waiver. And those waivers are issued by your city staff and are taken as a one-on-one into consideration on a one-on-one case-by-case basis. So if that's the direction in your city, you know, I encourage you to go back to your city staff. And we don't really have an overarching plan as a TAC as to how each city should allocate or not allocate their waivers. The waivers exist and the cities get to decide how they would like to employ or not employ those waivers. And I think it really does take a staff member to go out and make those decisions, looking at all of the factors and in discussion with the business owners. So
I guess I was thinking if we, as we go forward in the future as human beings trying to not continue to destroy the earth, if we could come up with more best management practices, even as far as food ordering and packaging and so on that goes with it. We have a lot of restaurants that do local produce, but we have a lot of restaurants that great big Cisco trucks come into town and unload boxes and boxes and boxes of semi-prepared or preserved food. And, you know, eventually if we could move to something that's more sustainable as far as ordering even the food that we serve in restaurants. And sometimes I don't know whether restaurants know how to do that. So that was just a thought of discussion for the future, getting better all the time.
yeah, thank you.
I see Mike has had his hand up quite a while. Mike, if I'd love to hear from you, and I think Kim gave you a great kudos, so thank you for chairing those meetings so efficiently.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. I think it wouldn't be a bad idea if a board member wanted to take a look at those things on a regular basis, just to get an idea of what we're doing. It's important to understand that we try to stay away from policy issues and we try and just work on the facts and the regulations. And so, for instance, when we're talking about the waivers, the TAC doesn't decide whether waivers are good or not. The TAC says what the process is, and each jurisdiction is responsible for that. And it's clarified in the law that the jurisdictions have these responsibilities. And so what we're talking about is a process, and each jurisdiction has to meet with Cal Recycle every year. And so they're the ones who are gonna, those are the ones we have to prove that we're doing everything we're supposed to be doing for SB 1383. The same thing goes for rates. The rates are all done differently for all jurisdictions. That's a policy issue that each jurisdiction doesn't want to give up. And so some jurisdictions have commercial subsidizing residential, and other jurisdictions have residential subsidizing commercial, but that's a political decision that each jurisdiction has to make. We just try to bring the facts at the TAC so that you have accurate facts when you make that decision. And I think the comment about the bags in the bags and all of the different processes and the problems it's having, it's a double-edged sword. You know, the bags make it easier to get it in, but they make it harder to process. And so this is a long-term issue. These SB 1383 issues are not going to go away. And these are the kinds of things we're going to have to work on as we can decide whether the processing equipment needs more equipment to be able to handle bags, or whether public education is a better way to do it. And so we don't really know what the answer is right now. I think we're just trying to move forward, trying different things and see what works. A lot of it has to do with the operations for the composting. And we got to make sure we don't do something that will take out the market revenue that operation brings in. And finally, actually, the reason I put my hand up to begin with is I wanted to thank Director Askew for having the Board of Supervisors do a resolution recognizing the efforts of both the ReGen staff as well as Salinas Valley Recyclables. One of the things that is kind of unusual, I think, is that we have regular participation from Salinas Valley Recyclables in this TAC group. And so there are some of these issues on SB 1383 are countywide issues. And so that gives us an opportunity to work together. And I think the Board of Supervisors is recognizing that collaboration between the two agencies. And I think it might be a good model for other topics like water. I mean, if we can get the technical staff to agree to the facts, it might make it easier to do the policy decisions. That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank
For the
you, Mike.
support.
Thank you for a brief presentation, but obviously there's a lot of interest in this. So
Thanks for all the questions.
yeah, thank you very much though for all you do.
Chair, I have a follow-up comment. I think it's important. Mike mentioned that it's the jurisdiction's responsibility to set the policy. My recollection is that the template comes out of this agency and the TAC, and the cities who don't know very much pretty much rubber stamp it, except that they have particular tweaks to it, like Carmel can afford to do some things. So they add on to the cost to their residents for extra services. But it's like buying a car. The jurisdictions don't build a car. They just decide on what other maybe additions they want on top of the car that's given to us, because we don't have enough resources to build a car. So to say that it's up to the jurisdictions to deal with these issues, it's beyond their capacity to deal with issues. That's why we always bounce these issues back to you, because we don't want to or know how to deal with them, and you're the collective brain trust. So there's some balance there. Yeah, it's our responsibility to make the policy, but we don't know how to make the policy without the consultants' help that you hire to help us understand the whole shebang.
Mr. Chair, could I just quickly respond on that? I think the way I try and explain it is the technical group is trying to frame the issue for the policymakers. And so we don't want to make the policy decision, but we want to give you the alternatives, if that helps where we're coming from.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And obviously it's important that you have engaged staff at these TAC meetings to come back and inform the rest of the staff and the council. And so that's thank you for every council. All right, thank you. That was a great discussion. Moving on to other correspondence. It looks like we received a letter from the Special Districts Risk Management Authority regarding a notification of election ballot for 2023, and it's SDRMA Board of Directors election. I don't know it's pretty self-explanatory, but
Yes, Chair, thank you for the opportunity. Included in your packet was an official election ballot. Hopefully you had an ample time to review those ballots and make a motion on 3 of the 4 candidates listed. 3 which are incumbents, 3 positions are available. There is a 4th candidate that is not an incumbent that is also included in the packet. And we would need a motion to act on this item through the chair for a recommendation on who to vote for the Special District Management Authority Board of Directors.
thank you. Is there anyone in the staff who's familiar with these board members? Might have any input? Okay. All right.
I'll make a motion to go with the 3 incumbents.
Thank you, Leo.
I'll second.
Thank you, Kim. We have a motion and a second. Is there any comment from the rest of the board? I see none. It looks like Dr. Barber is no longer with us. I'll have to open it up for this action. It's an action to public comment. Is there any public comment on this election? Please approach the podium if you're in the auditorium or seeing no one raising their hands online. Closing public comment on that. We have a motion second. Roll call vote, please.
Dr. Askin. Aye. Dr. Barber. Dr. Blackwelder.
Yes.
Dr. Delgado.
Yes.
Dr. Ferlito.
Yes.
Dr. Laska.
Yes.
Dr. Peak.
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley.
Yes.
Chair Campbell.
Yes,
Motion passes with those present.
Mr. President. Okay, thank you. Moving on to 19, County of Monterey resolution celebrating ReGen Monterey and Salinas Valley Recycles work implementing SB 1383.
Yes, thank you. Board of Supervisors recognition. Came in. And ReGen Monterey and Salinas Valley Recycles were jointly recognized by the County of Board of Supervisors on June 6th for their collaboration and implementation of Senate Bill 1383. And on behalf of member jurisdictions that serve throughout Monterey County, collaboration was implemented with a county-wide food scraps acceptance list, uniform for processing facilities for each agency, a joint strategy surrounding collection in the green organics cards, joint public education initiatives, joint strategies and implementation of countywide edible food recovery programs. We want to thank Supervisor Rudascu. We want to thank Supervisor Chris Lopez and the entire Board of the Supervisors for supporting our process with 1383 and the recognition that's well deserved on that. So we wouldn't mind showing the recognition that was presented. We're very
I'll just say, I think, one of the things that we're really working on is how we can build collaboration and find the places where we can work together to show that it's possible. And this is a really cool opportunity to highlight one of the many ways in which Salinas Valley, the peninsula, we're all in this together, and we're trying to find ways to collaborate and achieve common goals. That it was special to have the ReGen team at our board meeting. Thank you guys for coming, and thank you for the commitment to regional solution. I think that's really the big message that we're looking to highlight.
Right, thank you. Moving on to General Manager Communications.
Yeah, I have a few of those. We still in National Waste and Recycling Workers Week. This week is the National Waste Recycling Workers Week, where we recognize and celebrate the men and women in our waste and recycling industry as frontline responders. To say thanks to communications and the public education team is highlighting a recognition for ReGen Monterey staff on our social media channel. So just want to give thanks to the safety team and to everybody participating in the safety programs. We continue to have very good numbers representing our safety status here and our culture. I'm pretty excited about that item. We also have an update on ReGen Monterey internships. ReGen Monterey has traditionally hired interns in our engineering and our communications team, our public education department. We have Maya Macias today with us. She's our newest engineering intern. She's a student at UC Berkeley, majoring in civil engineering. And we're celebrating Maya and Katie O'Connor today. June 23rd is our International Women of Engineering Day, which focuses on raising the profile of women who are changing the field of engineering 1 degree at a time. So Miss Maya, if you wouldn't mind standing today and welcoming Miss Maya. I just have one comment around Maya. You know, she joined us just recently. She jumped in head first, fit right in with everybody in the team. Shows great work habit, comes in early, leaves late, is very excited about all the work and the learning. She's going through a lot of modules. But she has a very, very high interest, and her production has helped the engineering team with moving some items. So getting an intern and one that has high interest. And I've already talked about Maya is like, when are you gonna get your degree so you can come back and work for us? So we're pretty excited about setting a foundation for not only Maya, but others to come in the internship program. One, we desire the talent from the area because it does make hiring a little bit easier on the organization. So we're excited. Thank you, Maya, for your participation and being with us here at ReGen. Thank you again. We also have the wellness program. This is for the next fiscal year. We were setting up a small mini farmers market on the second Thursday of the month for July, August, and September. We'll be providing employees with fresh produce. We'll also be using organic farmers to get the produce in. The wellness program includes a fall wellness fair, which will be held in October, which offers the flu vaccines, biometric testing, wellness coaching from our partners at Montage Health. We'll have some games and some raffles, as well as a quarterly lunch to learn sessions like stress management and the benefit of gratitude to others. So the continuing the wellness around our conduct, our behavior, what we do, how we treat our bodies, how taking care of ourselves takes care of the organization, takes care of your job, all overlapping together. ReGen Monterey's statement of operation. A request has been made by Monterey Regional Waste Management District, ReGen Monterey, to provide a statement of operation and capacity of recycling services in regard to the request for proposal on solid waste and recyclables of organic waste collections, an RFP that's being issued by Salinas Valley Solid Waste Authority on March 17th, 2023. The statement was made available to several prospective service providers who will be registered to submit their proposal for the RFP solicitation. Meaning that of those 5 cities that go up to RFP, we currently receive 2 of those agencies' materials here at the district, 3 of which we do not. We're just saying that we would entertain our facility via processing for those 3 while the selection is made, and then we can come back and negotiate an agreement and terms with any of those agencies that would be selected during the process. Road improvements along Charlie Benson Road. You know, we've seen ticks and spikes with our traffic and inbound traffic and road, road traffic lines that extend through Charlie Benson Road. Over the next month or so, there will be some maintenance activity along the outbound lane, just west of the 4-way stop intersection to remove accumulated sediment, debris, to avoid fugitive dust and generation and reestablish stormwater drainage improvements. Along the inbound lane, just west of the 4-way stop intersection, there will be some road widening and compacted gravel surfacing to relieve some of that vehicle congestion. This is interim work. It's included as a small part of a larger paving project that is currently 90% complete. So we're almost to that point, but we feel there's a need to act a little bit now prematurely on addressing the wait time and lines that we have seen on certain days of the week. Some days a lot smoother than others. Recently, the last meeting, the chair used our facility. It took 30 minutes to get from the end of the line to the gate. So we are looking at multiple measures that could help remedy traffic flow. So we'll see more of that to come in the future. We are in the safety awareness month. First week was emergency preparation. Week 2 was slip, trips, and falls. Week 3 was heat illness prevention. And week 4 is the hazard recognition. We will be having a employee event around the safety and also the 4th of July kickoff and National Safety Month with hot dogs and a lunch on June 30th, which is a Friday, board members are welcome to join at the MERP between 11 and 12 in the afternoon. We're also just completed 6 sessions of the straights on leadership development courses that we had 24 people participate. We had some supervisors, we had some managers, and we had leadership all involved in these 6 traits. There were very extensive courses. There were 3 hours for the first session. We would have a combined luncheon between the 2 groups and then 3 hours for the second session group. We've already seen growth out of this. Our leadership development has been a priority for me and the leadership team for us to continue to believe in the cohesiveness and the alignment is the best way to accomplish our district strategies and our plan, and it's really getting everybody on the same page. And we will eventually be extending the learning opportunity to the next level of ReGen folks that could reside in moving up the chain, and then also some more detailed information on the 6 modules that we had for the first session participants. So we're pretty excited on the movement, and we're already seeing growth amongst some of those leaders and site managers throughout the facility. We have saved the dates, and these are my last ones here. So employee holiday dinner ironically falls on December 2nd, like it did last year. So save the date for December 2nd. It is a Saturday. And we will be having an event at the Fox Theater in Salinas. So just start planning far ahead for that December 2nd date. We also, for the next board meeting, which will be conducted on July 21st, we will be having a ribbon cutting ceremony around biochar. So we're looking to expedite the meeting on July 21st. And then have a ribbon cutting ceremony shortly after, roughly starting at 12:30. So if you guys have availability, it is not a requirement, but we would love for the board to join in that ribbon cutting ceremony that Cito's company has been working with our communications team to deliver. And the upcoming meeting for committee meetings and board meetings. The July 5th committee meetings will be canceled at this time, and we will start preparing for the July board meeting, and then we will find out whether or not we need to have an August board meeting and committee meetings as well. Usually we black out for the month of August. And those are my comments too.
Well, thank you very much. It's a lot of good information. Bruce.
Yes, I'd like to ask the general manager if there's any plans for beautifying or improving the appearance of Charlie Benson Lane and the signs. I know we talked about it before, but it's kind of lost track.
There is. So we've been going through the rebranding campaign, and the signage program was completely separate from the rebranding. We have engaged with a third party to deliver an overall change in the signage. I think we had over 100 signs throughout the facility. There was really no directional flow. They had been put up randomly at different times for different reasons. We are working to achieve the final product from the third party, share the information, give responses, get feedback from staff. Does it all co-align? So it is coming, it is shortly there, but we have discussed interim items that we can act on now that could help address traffic flow, traffic decision-making that could alleviate conduct of our customers that are coming in that could feel some frustration of not knowing where to go. So we're working on some of those temporary items that will align with the overall project, the permanent project. So it is shortly coming. We're working on internal communications to deliver that to our frontline employees so that they know that we are working on a scheme for delivering a pathway that gives good signage, clarity, the direction, where you're at, how do you get from A to B.
All right, so those concerns are more important than mine. Signage and traffic efficiency and safety are more important than my concerns. But my concern was the appearance that would be vegetation mowing, litter pickup along Charlie Benson Lane.
Yes. We do have a tree project to do about $100,000 worth of tree cutting to eliminate some of the overhang of trees. And we're working on the weed whacking on the dry vegetation on Charlie Benson as we speak.
So it probably would require a commitment to maintenance of cleaning up the trash on a regular schedule. If you drive it today, there's a lot of trash, probably just blow off from inbound vehicles. But I know it's a low priority, but I'm just curious.
We address Harley Benson every day. We put litter pickers on Harley Benson every day, at least for a certain amount of time to address litter that is coming off the blow off. So you're correct. It's not the biggest priority, but we do put litter picking as a priority at the entrance of Harley Benson.
I was thinking the whole, not the entrance, but the
The
whole.
whole script, we have somebody looking at Harley Benson every day.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Chair.
Karen?
You know, now that you bring that up, I drive in and so on. I grew up in an era where Burma Shave had little signs on the highway that you could drive by and you'd see little stains and so on. And there might be a real opportunity to use that stretch to educate what ReGen does. How many tons we process, how many this, how many that, as people are standing in line or driving along in line, educate them more about the district in a quality way, quality signs that tell the story of ReGen, which gives them something to do as they're driving, and also education. So that might be something you might want to consider.
Thank you.
For a future improvement along there. I think it would be kind of a good thing.
Thank you very much. Great.
All right, let's move on to board communications. Karen,
Yes, I brought a little package today. You know, I do the laundry at our house. You may all do the laundry too, but there was a picture, oops, no, I've lost it. There was a picture in one of our reports that looked like this, all the plastics being chewed up. And I try in my own personal life to make adjustments and change habits for a better world. And one of the things that I looked at was detergent bottles. And, you know, I don't really like lugging those heavy detergent bottles home from the store either. And we're transporting mostly water when we're transporting big detergent bottles. I'm picking on them, but it's also the liquid that you clean toilets with. It's anything that comes in plastic that we can choose to do differently. So this year I chose to do my laundry differently, and I found this great company, and this is 32 loads of laundry in here, and it comes in a little recyclable box, but they're wonderful little. This is what you put in your laundry. It's this nice little sheet. And you can tear it up in little pieces. You could take it when you're traveling and so that you can wash things in the sink. But it is a change of habit. It's a different way of looking at laundry. This same company also went further, and you order them, obviously you pay for them, but you get glass bottles instead of plastic, and you get this is glass and mirror cleansing tablets. So a tablet goes into this bottle and you fill it with your own water at home, and then you have actually this is the one for hand soap, but there's a spray one, and then you just reorder the tablets. There are tub and tile cleaning tablets that you throw in your. So this is all in lieu of plastic. And it seems to me, if we just keep processing plastic and this stuff, we're never going to really improve the earth. So if there's an opportunity for us at ReGen and to talk to the haulers, obviously, about newsletters that talk about changes that you can make in your own home to lessen the use of plastics. I just think it would be a great thing if we could actually end up processing a lot less plastic. And so anyway, just thought I'd show you these things. Smells really good. You can also get unscented, but it's quite a revolution when you think about it in all of the plastic we produce in our homes every day. So go home and look at all the plastic under your counters, and all the plastic in your laundry room, and maybe contemplate doing it a different way. You know, some of this is all about changing attitudes, but with good alternatives. And I have to tell you, I have a lot of dirty laundry and this works quite well. Anyway, I just thought I would share that with you because, you know, we have to all be part of the solution and not just keep accepting the problem. So anyway, thank you for indulging me in showing you the laundry. The laundry items. It's actually quite fun. My husband doesn't quite believe it. He goes, what? What? Where's the bottle? You know, the bottle is not there anymore. And if we could, you know, influence more stores to actually start carrying these kinds of products, you know, it's easy enough to order them, but education and changing of habits is the way of the future. I just watched Richard Attenborough's second, I think it's called Earth 2. And the amount of plastics in the islands and the oceans that are poisoning fish, poisoning birds, is just unacceptable anymore when there are good alternatives. So anyway, just thought I'm not selling them.
Thank you. Yeah, I use those sheets too, and they work very well. I got today in my filthy clothes. And the staff, I think was one, so around the holidays, we got a bag of some goodies from, I believe it's called Alma on the west end of San City that sells the bar soaps and things and unpackaged and concentrates, and then the glass bottles that you can.
Doesn't the Hawaiians do something like that?
There's a specific place.
There's a retail store.
Alma Del Mar.
Yeah,
Alma Del Mar is the.
thank you. Alma Del Mar. Thank you.
Spirit of
Definitely-
the ocean.
Pardon?
Spirit of the ocean. Is the translation. On my
Alma
list.
Del Mar, nice. Anyway, so yeah, look into it too. So, but it has some good stuff there as well. And I just got a comment. I saw one of the best dressed bicyclists today on the way to this morning. Good job, Bruce.
Well, you're me, you must be my twin brother.
Any other board member comments?
Have a couple. I wanted to ask our general manager that all the dates that you listed, I tried to jot them down, but if we could get an email out to us,
Sure.
so we could make sure we get those
Absolutely,
on our
yes.
calendar. Okay, perfect.
Absolutely, yes.
And then I wanted to give a shout out to the newest bartender at the Otter's Den. Marina was like going off last night with guest bartender Bruce Lovato. It was so much fun and makes me love living in this beautiful town of Marina. And then I wanted to give a quick update. There's been some ongoing conversation and the county and TMC talking about work improvements along Del Monte and the Lapis Road, right where the bike trail comes across the railroad crossing. So we've been in touch with everyone. Thank you, Bruce. Thank you, ReGen. Thank you, TMC. Thank you, county staff. But the current update is that we're finalizing a contract with Granite Rock to, this is our little summary, remove and replace failed asphalt 3 feet along Del Monte Boulevard, the railroad crossing near Lapis. Regrade the shoulders on either side of Del Monte, remove and replace failed asphalt on Lapis Road, and then sign and striping new asphalt along Del Monte Road and Lapis Road, approximately like 1,000 linear feet. So it's in process. We're going through all the things that you have to go through. We had to put in some special requests for funding. We had to make sure it was on everyone's radar, and we are bird dogging it along the way as it proceeds. But I just wanted to give that update. There's been some very immediate repairs made, but there is a much broader road improvement along that section that was not originally planned for this budget cycle, but it is now planned for this budget cycle, and it will be happening. So stay with us and be prepared for some road interruptions while that work is being done, but we'll keep you posted along the way. So thank you all for your patience.
Thank you. That's nice. Anyone else?
I'd like to say thank you to ReGen staff. Once a month, many of you know that volunteers pick up the litter from Beach Road and Marina all the way to Highway 1 interchange here past Charlie Benson. And the staff picks up all of our bags the next day and all of our couches and that kind of a thing. But this month I forgot to call them and they did it anyway.
Yeah.
Great.
That's a good partnership.
All right. All right, so we're gonna move into closed session and then come back out and readdress item 15 that got moved to the end. You could read us into closed session, that'd be great, and then I'll see if there's any public comment on our closed session item.
Very good. At this point, the board will temporarily adjourn to the closed session to consider the matter listed on the agenda, which is a public employment performance evaluation of the general manager. Subsequent to that, I will have a short report out, and the board will reconvene in open session and take action on one remaining item on the agenda.
Okay, thank you. Is there any public comment on a closed session item? Please approach the podium and or make your raise your hand online. Okay, seeing none, we're closing public comment on our closed session item. Burdick, would you mind just staying here for just a little bit, please?
Yeah.
All right, thank you. We're back from closed session. Bob, if you could please read us.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Yes, I will report out on closed session this morning. The board met in closed session this morning on the matter listed on the agenda, which was one matter for a performance evaluation of a public employee, that person being the general manager. During the closed session this morning, the board received information and provided direction, but there was no reportable action taken this morning in the closed session, which was joined, I should probably note for the record, by the general manager during the closed session this morning. That concludes my report.
All right, thank you very much. So we'll move back to item 15, which is approve revised pay schedules for general manager and unrepresented confidential at will classification to incorporate cost of living adjustments for fiscal year 2023-24. I think it's pretty explanatory. We've already done that for items 13 and 14 were very similar. If there's anything staff has to add, is there Bill?
Ready for a motion?
On the item here? Yes.
Yeah, so I move to continue this item, approve revised pay schedule for the general manager to the next meeting closed session. And divide the question also. I guess the motion is to divide the question and then to continue the first part to the next regularly scheduled meeting closed session.
All right, so I'll second the motion for discussion so we can clarify.
Okay, yes, so divide the
Divide the question, and so it's approved pay schedule for the general manager and the unrepresented confidential. So split those two.
we can, is there, real quick, who are the, is there anyone who falls under the category of the unrepresented confidential at will classification?
Yes, all of the ReGen Monterey department directors fall under the at will and confidential, as well as HR staff, they fall under the confidential. So it's general manager is one schedule, everybody else is under a separate schedule.
Okay. So
Can you restate the motion?
Well, I guess it's a two parties to divide the question in general manager and unrepresented confidential, and to continue the pay schedule for the general manager to our next regularly scheduled meeting closed session.
Could I ask for friendly amendment that we approve the unrepresented confidential at will classification according to the agenda item?
Okay, we'll add that.
And those positions, I just might add, are listed in attachment B in your agenda packet.
And the friendly amendment I'd like to be considered is to do 15 as is, we're almost there. But to agendize in closed session at a further, at a future meeting, any other adjustment to the general manager's compensation. So that if everyone's getting 4.2, everyone gets 4.2.
will you just make that a substitute motion, please?
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make a substitute motion. We approve 15 as is, and then we agendized at a future closed session meeting. Potential further adjustment to the general manager's compensation.
I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion and a substitute motion and a second to adopt item 15 as presented. Is there any public comment on item 15? Please raise your hand if you're online or first podium if you're okay. Seeing no one, closing public comment on item 15. And the substitute motion is to approve item 15 with the understanding that we will agendize discussion of other compensation for the general manager in the session. That sounds correct. I guess we'll stick with the roll call vote.
Let me ask one question. That would be at the next scheduled meeting. And did I hear earlier that we may not have a meeting?
We do have one, we do have one set for July 21st.
Okay,
So next
we
month.
may not have one in August, but this would come back in July.
Okay, yes,
Okay,
yes. We'll do a roll call vote. Since that's where we are.
Director Askew? Aye. Director Barber? Director Blackwelder?
Yes.
Dr. Delgado?
Yes.
Dr. Carlito?
yes,
Dr. Laska? Dr. Peak?
Aye.
Vice Chair Shirley?
Yes.
Chair Campbell?
Yes.
Motion passed with those present.
All right, thank you, everybody. I believe that seeing no further business on the agenda, this meeting's adjourned.